Hi folks, this is Karim Raouf from IT Visualizer channel. They will continue our lab, the Red Alert Labs, the video number 99. We have been discussing in the previous video the following. We have been working now for 10 videos on discussing the documentation which is called CIS Critical Security Controls version 8, which is provided by a non-profitable organization called Center for Internet Security Organization. This is an organization that its main concern in issuing documentations and recommendations to secure most of our operating systems, most of our applications, and one of these documentation to protect yourself against cybersecurity attacks. We have discussed from this documentation the first 3 points, which is to make an inventory of your enterprise assets hardware, and the second point to make an inventory of your enterprise assets software, and the third point is to protect your data or data protection. If you need more details, please refer to my previous video or previous videos. Okay, we have stopped at the third point, which is data protection, and we have discussed a lot of things concerning data protection. To protect your data, the documentation says that you need to know the data life cycle within your environment, or the data management process within your environment, okay, or the data flow in your organization or in your network. So you need to know the data flow in your environment so you know where to protect the data. Okay, we have said that data is not only protected when it is in storage. It is protected in 5 phases: when the data is collected, when the data is stored, when the data is used, when the data is shared, when the data is archived, or even when the data is being destroyed. So we need to protect the data in all of these phases, and the data have 2 status or 2 states: to be in rest or to be in transit. So we need to protect data in store, or when it is stored, and this is applicable when the data is in the life cycle, or when it is stored and when it is archived. So this means that data it is in rest. And when the data is collected or used or shared, this means that the data is in transit. So we need to protect data in all situations, in all states. Okay, we have discussed this in the previous videos, and we have applied this data protection method. We have discussed this and we have illustrated this in our Red Alert Lab. We have a graph, and we have discussed how we can protect the data in the Red Alert Lab scenario, and we have created a data flow diagram so we can know specifically how the data travels and goes in our organization or in our lab scenario. And to make it more clear, I have choose one or a real organization that have some data classification, or have some data management process, or have a data protection guide. This is at the MAM University. So we have discussed at the MAM University that they have a data management process, okay, how they can manage the data within the university, how they can protect it within the university. And we have discussed their IT policy, which includes data classification or data management process, which through it we can know how we can protect our data. And we have also discussed the information security policy of the MAM University, which is also concerned with data protection, but not only data, it is information as a whole, because information could be data and other forms, maybe, I don't know. But actually he is saying that the information security policy, it is mainly focusing on the responsibilities. So the MAM University have data management guide or data classification guide, which defines the data types and how to protect it. Information security policy is mainly concerned with the responsibilities and the accountability, how we can, after classifying our data and protecting our data, how we can monitor and who is accountable when there is some leakage of the data. So we have defined types of data, various types of data, and we have discussed how we can protect it. Okay, what if a leakage or a hack or this type or some of these types of data are being leaked, who is responsible for this? Is it only the IT, or there is other parties involved? We have discussed this in the previous video. The information security policy, who is responsible, or the information security policy of Dammam University states clearly who is responsible for protecting the data, who is accountable for the leakage of the data, and a lot of things actually. Please refer also to my previous video to see it. Today we will discuss it, Dammam University backup process or backup guide, how they protect the different types of data. What is the frequency of the backup, what is the retention period, or what is the time needed for every data we should keep it, or retention, or archived, how much time every type of data is to be archived, and when to be every type of data we can destroy it or to dispose of it. So we will see in this video, or we will complete working with the backup creation process of Dammam University. He's saying here that backups will be created using industry standard data backup software that supports enterprise level data assurance. So here is saying that we will choose a software that it is standard, or it is famous, and he's saying standard data backup software, a normal backup software, but it is mainly working with large enterprise environments, because it will be a centralized backup. So you should choose a software that you could use as a centralized backup system. Okay, he's saying here that backups should be, or we will take backups full backup, or differential backup, or incremental backup. And he's saying again, stressing on centralized management. So we should manage all of our backups from one centralized location. Mainly it will be on a server or something, and it will manage all of the backups on all of the different servers and workstations. Anyway, so it's saying here we have full backup, which is to take, it's from its name, it's saying full backup, so take backup of everything. Or incremental backup, take only the changes that happened, or take backup of the changes, not a full backup. So a full backup, it will take a full backup including the changes, but as for the incremental backup, it will take only the changes that happen to the machine and it will back it up. And differential, I don't know actually what is differential, but I think it is the opposite of incremental. Anyway, you can Google it and see it, but here he's saying that mainly we will take the three types of backup. But here from the documentation I see that they take only full or incremental. So let's see what is the standard backup. So we have system backup profiles, we have a standard backup. So he is classifying backup to categories. Standard backup, it is provided for most centralized university computer systems. So this includes workstations and servers. Okay, this is a backup of, or a type of backup called the standard backup. You take this backup maybe on a week basis or a month basis. The backup could be full, differential, or incremental. The frequency of backup could be daily, weekly, or monthly. It depends upon the university needs and the IT, or depends upon your operation. Okay, so saying here that the standard backup could be weekly or monthly or daily. It is dependent upon the application. So this is, I think, related to the servers, or it is stressing mostly on the backup of the servers, not the workstations. Okay, so he's saying it depends upon the backup, or depends upon the application. Maybe an application is very, very critical. Maybe the financial application, of course, needs to be backed every day because this is financial data. Maybe the file server that contains all of the users' documentations and files need to be backed daily. Okay, maybe, for example, the maybe the HR system, for example, doesn't need to be backed every day. Maybe it can be backed every month. Okay, so here it depends upon the importance of the application, or let's say that it depends upon the data type that the application works with. Okay, so the application, maybe he is writing data to a database. It depends upon what is the data or the type of data used within the application. If it is, for example, confidential or highly confidential, then we should bucket it every day. Or if it is internal type of data or public data, then we can back it up maybe every month. and he's saying the retention of these backups could vary from 1 week to 2 months. Okay, so the retention period, the tapes should be stored for every type of data, or for the standard backup, from 1 week to 2 months. Okay, here I think he didn't here state which type of data he is backing up. Okay, he's saying here this is a general definition, but I think standard backup here, it is concerning mostly, I think, upon the maybe the public and internal data, because we will see after that there is another type of backup which is, I think, more not standard, maybe something else, but we will see now. From some applications, backup is performed on a day and time agreed upon the OU and application owner. So he's saying this is maybe on a day and time. Appendix shows the application along which backup type, frequency of backup, and retention is stated, but I didn't find this appendix anyway. But I think the standard backup, maybe it is for normal data or for public and internal data. Let's see the other or the second type of backup, critical system backup. Okay, here certain enterprise-wide systems are deemed critical to university operations and dedicate longer retention periods from 6 months to up 1 year. I think this critical system backup, maybe it depends upon confidential data or high confidential data. Okay, I think applications using or storing this kind of data, I think he's stating critical system backups. I think he's referring to systems or applications using or storing confidential or high confidential data. He's saying that we should have a longer retention period for 6 months up to 1 year. Maybe the financial system, for example, data need to be retained for 6 months up to 1 year, because the government also needs these kinds of data so it can calculate the tax. The type, frequency, and retention period is different from different applications, so this also depends. So you have critical systems. Okay, the retention periods differ. Okay, maybe as we said before, financial system needs to be backed. Okay, maybe other systems backup maybe every day, and the retention period could be from 6 up to 1 year. This is different than the standard backup, which the retention is from, I think, 2 weeks to 1 month. Okay, so this means that this system contains critical data or high confidential and confidential data. Prior to a major upgrade of a production system, database, or application, or full system backup is performed and retained for 6 months. So here is stating that any system that will be upgraded, maybe financial system, any other systems, if you are upgrading it, then you should take a system backup or take a backup, and this backup is retained for 6 months. So this is very, very critical. So maybe you are using a system that doesn't store confidential data or high confidential data, but this is a critical system that it is used widely within your organization. For example, the camera or the NVR system, maybe its data is not as critical as the financial data, but it is a very important system. So if you are trying to upgrade it, then you should take a backup from the NVR system and retain this backup for 6 months. Okay, Appendix I shows the application along with the type, frequency. I think I didn't see this Appendix I tried to search it, but I didn't see it. Okay, then there is special request backup. Some departments or applications may require an exception to the standard backup retention periods mentioned above. Exceptions are permitted but must be fully documented. Okay, let's see here. So what we understand from here, that this is, let's see here again, sorry. So there is until now 3 kinds of backup. Standard backup, which could be weekly, daily, monthly, and the retention period is from 2 weeks to 1 month. So I think this standard backup is related to maybe public data or internal data. Okay, critical system backup, I think it is here talking about high confidential data and confidential data, and this its retention period is more than 6 months up to 1 year. And I think also the backup or frequently backing up these critical systems should be daily maybe. Okay, and then special request backup, this is depends upon a special request or a request asked by the department heads. Or for example, let me state one situation happened with me. Maybe when you are closing the year, so sometimes when you are using a financial system and the accounting team is closing the year, then they are asking to make a special backup request to back up the data before closing the year. So you are taking a backup of the financial system every day, but especially at that day when they are closing the year, they will ask you to take a backup before closing the year. Okay, so this is a special request backup, and this special request backup it is permitted. So there is some exceptions. There is standard backup, and this is done on an automatic or on a daily basis maybe, and critical backups also is done on a daily basis, and it's done automatically according to a plan or a standard. But as for the special request, it is asked at any time or in special situations. Okay, so here there is the three types of backup, and there is fourth one, it is no backup. Here is saying that he will not be responsible for backing up. Let's read this one. ICT service or the IT is responsible for backing up data that is stored in central systems and databases. So he's stating here that data stored on applications used by users or stored on file server on the file server created or done by the IT, he is responsible for backing up this data. Okay, but as for data residing on individual workstation hard disks or locally on workstations, so if there is any data saved by the user on his workstation on his local drive, he is not responsible for backing up. The user is responsible for backing up this data. If he is not he doesn't know how to protect it, then he should transfer the data from his local hard disk to the file server storage or on a shared storage in our network. Furthermore, systems that fall under this category might include development or test systems that do not contain important business or academic data. So he's saying also maybe the workstation of the user contains some applications that is not centralized, okay, or it is not used on a wide scale in our university. He is using a special software, he have downloaded it, so we cannot detect this software. He is using a software installed by the user, so he is not also, we are not responsible for this kind of data, and it's not used or it does not contain imported business or academic data. So he's using a program, for example, maybe a program not used in business, something related to him. Students, faculty, staff, and third parties who store data on university equipment are responsible for ensuring data is stored in a way that will ensure it is properly backed up. So he's saying that local data or local hard disk will not be stored, so users should be aware that any data will be backed up. It should be on the file server of the university, or it is a centralized system within university. Okay. However, most systems that are centrally managed, he's stressing on this, by DICT are backed up on one of the schedules listed above. Okay, so it's saying here that systems within university is backed up and their databases are backed up, and as for the file shares and the documents of the users, it is already also backed up because it is on a file server or it is stored on a centralized location. So this is the backup categories. They have, or the MEM University have 4 types of backup. There is standard backup, which is the normal backup, I think, and the critical system backups, which is more, or it is focusing on critical systems backup. The third type is special request backups, we have discussed this, and the fourth one is no backup. So these are all things or the categories they use or defining the backup and the retention periods. Okay, for the standard backups it should be from 2 weeks to 1 month. Okay, and then you can rotate the tapes and use it again, or overwrite the data media or the backup media to use it again. This is for the standard. For the critical, the retention period could be from 6 to 1 year. As for the special request, maybe also there is some retention period different. Maybe the financial team will ask you to, for example, keep the backup of closing of the year, for example, maybe for 10 years. Okay, this depends upon the department heads. Okay, so, and at the end there is no backup. Okay, this doesn't have a time for retention. So here, let's see here. So we have finished here the backup process. We have discussed the 3 types of backup, or the 4 types of backup, and we try to illustrate what this type of backups focus on and the retention periods. Here he is talking about storage locations and retention. So here is saying where to save the backups. Maybe it is tapes or something, or where even this is for to store the backup, to frequently use it, okay, and to store it as an archive, or to store them, or to archive them. So to archive thing, it is to store it but for a long period, and it will not be used frequently. Okay, so we will store data to use it frequently on a daily basis, or store backup and use it on not on a daily basis, which means we are archiving the data. Okay, let's see here. Periods of backup. Unless a system supporting an application or business functions requires a custom retention period. So they say if the application requires a custom retention period, then this is accepted, or if not, then they have some standards for the retention period. We will obtain full incremental backups. Backup dates for the current weekly backup period will be stored within the DICT for purpose of current backups and restore. So it's saying here that weekly backups will be stored within the facility or within the university. This is the only thing. He is saying that you should only keep weekly backups. As for monthly backups and yearly backup, this will be stored off-site. Let's see here, or let's continue reading. Tapes representing backups from the former weekly backup period will be stored within a secured, fireproof place until such time as the backup images stored on these tapes expire and the tapes are reused or destroyed. So it's saying here they have only storing, or they are having 1 week backup left within the premises or within the university, okay, or to be used frequently, or to be accessible by the IT. As for the previous weeks, it will be stored within a safe proof, or it is safe, and it is safe proof from fire, and until the backup tapes or the weekly backup tapes or the retention period of this backup tapes is ended, then you can destroy it or reuse it. Okay, so it's saying here that we are only allowed to have 1 week backup, so we can access it. Okay, 1 week backup. Okay, as for the previous weeks, it is stored within a safe which is fireproof, and when the time comes and this stored tapes retention period ends, then we can reuse it or destroy it. Okay, after a successful backup, it will be stored in a secure off-site media vault location for an appropriate period for disaster recovery purposes. So it's saying here we have 3 storage location. First of all, 1 week storage, and 1 week backup of data will be stored within the facility or within the IT. Okay, I think maybe he's, for example, saying that 1 week tapes will be left in the IT office. Okay, as for the previous weeks, also it will be kept in the IT office, but in a safe or a fireproof safe, and it will be locked. Okay, and when the time comes and this tapes or the previous week's tapes retention period expire, then we can use it. And we have an off-site place, so we will take some of these tapes and put it not in a safe in the IT office, but outside the university, maybe in a bank vault or something. Okay, and this is also, I have something of this encountered in my location of work, or on my previous working hotel. So they say, for example, we have a policy that we save backups, okay, in a safe, and we have an off-site tape, okay, or something, or we have tapes to be saved outside of the IT office. Especially it should be at least 1 kilometer far from the hotel or from the location of my work. Okay, so this is one of the standards we were using. Okay, this will ensure that no more than 1 week information would be lost in event of a disaster in which campus systems and backups are destroyed. So he's saying here you should only keep 1 week of data or backup of data within the premises. the other weeks should be stored in a fireproof safe, and you should have also a third location as an off-site location to save data. Okay, after the period of 6 months has elapsed, the tapes may be optionally returned to the DICT and reused or destroyed. So he's saying here that the off-site tapes can be returned after 6 months, and it could be optionally, it can be reused or destroyed. Okay, he's saying that. So this is in short, he is stating the storage locations. So we can see that we have 3 locations. Let's put it in a way. We have, for example, the IT office. We store 1 week of tapes. Maybe it is stored on the desk, for example, or it is left on the desk of the IT, so he can frequently using it. And this is 1 week backup of data, and the previous weeks it should be stored in a safe within the IT office. And other than that, we have also some tapes that can be stored outside, or it will be stored an off-site place out of the university. Maybe, for example, if you are taking daily backups, you can choose one of these backups in one day and store it outside the premises, or an off-site storage. And he is stating here that off-site storage can be left for 6 months and then return it back, and then we can reuse it or destroy it. So very, very clear. So we have the backup policy of the Dammam University stating the different backups and the different retention periods, and the store location of these backups. So this is very, very clear how we can use it, and use these guidelines to make our own backup policy and retention policy and storage policy. And all of these, the backup and the retention period and the storage locations, all of these will help us to protect our data. Okay, so this is one of the things we should concentrate on. Let's continue and see furthermore. So he's saying also to protect our data, we should regularly make something called backup verification, or to restore these backups. So for example, we have stored our data on tapes, then we should make a backup test restore, or to make a restore test. Okay, on periodic basis, logged information generated from each backup will be reviewed for the following. And also, if you are using a centralized system to backup the different workstations and servers, then the backup job should be read, or the backup log should be read to check for errors, to monitor the duration of the backup, to see how much time the backup is taken. So for example, maybe you are backing up a lot of data, so you can reduce the backup job duration by reducing the amount of data that is being backupped. Maybe you are take some of this data and archive it, so the duration or the time of the backup would be less. To optimize backup performance where possible, this is what I'm talking about. To reduce the data volume, to reduce the duration of time the backup is taken. Okay, the ICT will identify problems and take corrective actions to reduce any risks associated with failed backups. Test restores from backup tapes for each system will be performed. What is the duration? Problems will be identified or reacted. This work to ensure that both tapes and backup procedures work properly. So let's see here. Maybe you are taking backup every day, so I think you can make a restore test every month. In my field of work, we are making restoration or backup verification or a restore test once a month. Okay, so you can do this, or make it not only once a month, twice a month. Okay, so this will be a good thing to do. You take random tapes and restore them twice a month. Okay, to make sure that your backup tapes are already the data on the backup or the data on the tapes are not corrupted. Okay, and also to monitor the logs of the backup jobs to make sure that the backup job it is already taken without any errors. Okay, and if there is any errors, then you should rectify it. Okay, so I think we can work further. Let's see what is also here, and let's see if how much time we have. We have also 30 minutes. Here is saying media management. So this is the media. He have also a policy to handle or to work with the media that you are using to store data. So maybe, for example, I am having tape or tape drives to store data on it. So these tape drives should be labeled. You put, for example, if you are taking backup on Monday, so the backup tape should be labeled Monday backup. Okay, something like this. He's saying that media will be clearly labeled and logs will be maintained identifying the location and the content of the backup media. I think this is also maintained identifying the location and the content of the backup media. This is, I think, you will get it from the backup log from the system that is responsible for backing up the servers and the data. For example, maybe something like backup exec or something like Veeam. Okay, so you can take these logs, okay, to know the location of the data backed up and the content of the backup, okay, and the backup of the media, also the backup contained in the media. All this, I think we can get it from the backup job. Backup images on assigned media will be tracked through the retention period defined for each image. Okay, I think he's saying also the retention period here. When all images on the backup media have expired, the media will be incorporated amongst unassigned available media until reuse. So he's saying here, if the data is expired or the retention period of the data is due, or it is due, then you can take the tapes and reuse it or leave it unassigned or remove the label. For example, maybe if I'm taking, for example, the tape that contains the Monday backup, and this tape the data on it is expired or the retention period is ended, then I can remove the label from that tape and make the tape without a label, so I can put a new label and reuse it back. Okay, so he's saying here, periodically and according to the recommended lifetime defined for the backup media utilized, the ICT will retire and dispose of the media so to avoid media failures. Anyway, for example, maybe some tapes have some corruption, or it is have some errors, or the tape it is damaged, so we need to revise the logs and see if there is any errors concerning a corruption or some read and write errors, so we can know from it that the media is no longer working properly and we should replace it. Maybe the tape drive is not working perfectly, so we can remove it and get a new tape drive. Okay, so this is for the media management. Here he is concentrating on labeling the media and how to destroy the media and how we can reuse the media. Okay, this is something very simple. Okay, and storage, access and security. All backup media must be stored in a secure area that is accessible only to designated staff or employees of the contracted secure off-site media vault vendor used by the DICT. So for example, maybe if you are putting your data in an off-site bank, so the vendors or the personnel of the bank is authorized to access this vault. Okay, backup media will be stored in a physically secured fireproof place when it is not in use. This was stated before. During transport or changes of media will not be left unattended. So during transport or changes of media will not be left unattended. So for example, if you are transporting a tape drive for example to an off-site location, you as an IT should not leave this media on your desk unattended. You should monitor the media and you should take it. It should be in front of your eye and you should give it to a responsible person or a person that will be from the bank to put it in the safe. So you should monitor the transport or the changes of the media. Okay, so this is very clear. Let's see also what policy you have again. I think we here work with the, so these are all related to the backup. So most of these things are related to backup and policy procedures. So we have discussed until now the backup and policies procedures. First of all, we have known the backup categories. We have known the retention periods for every backup type, and we have discussed the retention period and the storage locations of every type of backup, and the backup verification. Okay, we have say the backup verification and the media management and the storage access and security. Okay, all of these are related to the backup procedures. So let's see again something here related to backup and policy procedures, something called disaster recovery considerations. Okay, as soon as is practical and safe post-disaster, the ICT will restore existing systems to working order or obtain comparable systems in support of defined business processes and application software. Restore existing systems to working order to obtain comparable. So he's saying if there is a disaster, okay, you need to restore existing systems to work or obtain comparable systems in support of defined business process and application software. So he's saying if there is a disaster, you should restore the system or have another backup system or a similar system to work on it. Okay, restore the backup system according to documented configuration so as to restore server systems. You should have a configuration first and you back up this configuration, and when you restore it according to this backup. So for example, you have a financial system and you back up the configuration of the financial system. Okay, you should restore it later, and you should also not back up the financial system configuration but to have a documentation of this backup. Okay, documentation of this configuration, sorry. Obtain all necessary backup media to restore server computing system. So you should ask for the backup media. Maybe this backup media is outside the IT office, maybe it's an off-site location. You should restore or should ask for these tapes to restore. Restore server computing systems according to the priority of systems and processes outlined for restoration and recovery in the disaster recovery plan. Anyway, so this depends upon let's see, this depends upon the importance of the system itself. Okay, according to the priority of systems and processes. Okay, so let's continue. And then here is the last thing I think here is saying this is documentation. This is provided when you are taking backup. This is the form that you need to fill. Okay, data, date of data backup, type of data, number of generations, responsibility for the backup, who is responsible, extent of data backup files directory, data media on which the operation data are stored, data media on which the backup tape are stored, data backup hardware and software with version number, storage locations. Anyway, so this is essential documentation will be maintained for orderly and efficient data backup and restoration. The person in charge of data backup should fully document the following items for each generated data backup: date of data backup, type of data, number of generations, responsibility of data backup, extent of data backup files or directories, data media on which the operation data are, data media on which the backup data are stored. Okay, data backup hardware and software, the version of the backup of the hardware and software of the backup, storage locations of backup copies. Anyway, so this is all related to the backup policy. I think the upcoming video we will discuss, maybe let's see here, I think I have something here. Okay, here the upcoming video I will begin discussing the storing or the policy to store data and protect data on cloud storage. He have here, the Dammam University have a policy for OneDrive storage, cloud storage. Okay, so we have discussed in this video the backup policy and procedures in Dammam University. It begins with saying that, let me go further here, saying the backup system backup profiles. We have said this, and then the storage or the we have the system backup profiles. We have discussed that we have 4 types of backups: standard, critical, special, and no backup. And then let's see here, and then we have discussed after that the storage locations of the backup and retention period of every type of backup. And then we have discussed the backup verification or restoration and how much frequently we should restore our backup and test it. And at the end we discussed the media management, okay, and the storage and access and security of these backups. And at the end, what is if a disaster happens. Okay, these are all discussed and at the end the documentation for the backup, what we should when we backup, which forum should we fill. Okay, so the upcoming video I will discuss the policy for storing data on the cloud. Hope this video is informative for you all, and thank you all for viewing. Thank you so much.